This reading is taken from Rays of the One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by J. Donald Walters, Swami Kriyananda. This week's topic is, or asks the question, do you need a guru? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it and your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Many people scoff at the idea of having a guru. True to human nature generally, they make a virtue of their scoffing. I am responsible for what I do, they announce, responsible for my mistakes as well as for my victories. What would I ever learn if I handed over my development to someone else? To depend on another for guidance would be an act of spiritual cowardice. It would be understandable for someone gifted with some trivial ability, for instance, with words, to insist on doing his crossword puzzle himself, without letting anyone else help him. But supposing, even in such trivial matters, he had no such gift, what virtue would there be in refusing to learn? For that matter, moreover, where do our gifts come from? They are not a native ability. Still, crossword puzzles are hardly an important challenge. What if a person wanted to do something daring, to climb a cliff, for instance, but refused to study the art of mountain climbing? He would climb at the risk of his life. And how much more is risked than physical life in the great adventure of the divine search, where the risk is to salvation itself? Where is the sacrifice in seeking guidance? Even a mountain guide wouldn't presume to do one's climbing for one. His purpose would be only to help the neophyte to climb safely. To have a wise guru is not a sign of weakness, but of plain common sense. All the saints, aware as they are of the hazards of the adventure, agree on the importance of having a guide or guru. And these are the heroes speaking, not cowards or spiritual weaklings. Jesus emphasized the importance of having a teacher by asking John to baptize him. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 3, we read of his coming to John. Thus Jesus said to John, "It becometh us to fulfill all righteousness." In the Bhagavad Gita, the 4th chapter, Sri Krishna says, "Open thyself to those who have attained wisdom. They will be thy teachers. Ask questions of them, both verbally and mentally. Serve them faithfully and with devotion." How is a devotee to recognize one who has attained wisdom? The Bhagavad Gita gives us this inspiring description of the sage. By this sign is he known, being of equal grace to comrades, friends, chance-comers, strangers, lovers, enemies, aliens, and kingsmen, loving all alike, evil or good. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
From Whispers from Eternity, the Book of Prayer Demands by Paramhansa Yogananda. The caravan of my prayers is moving towards thee. The caravan of my prayers is moving towards thee. In the eyes of kindness I behold glimmers of thy mercy. Even the bare trees of dark lives flicker with a myriad glowworms of thy shining life. The caravan of my prayers has been working its way slowly through dry waste of arid doubts and furious sandstorms of despondency. Yet at last, far-off glimpses of thy oasis of silent assurance have roused me in my drooping efforts. Eagerly I await the moment when I can dip into thy reviving waters of my parched, thirsty lips of faith, and there drink deeply from thy well of bliss. morning. I was in half-price books some time ago. Just looking at, I like going to the rare book section. It's all locked, you know, under keys and stuff. I like looking at the books that are offered there. But in this particular half-price books, I found a book, commentary on the New Testament, probably written in the 1930s or 40s. And it was written in plain English. So the translator went through the New Testament and he just put it into everyday English, at least of the 30s and 40s. So what he used as a guide, though, he used a guide, a translator, Edwin Fitzgerald. Edwin Fitzgerald translated the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam back in the 1880s, 1890s. And Yoganandaji always referred to that book of Omar in the translation. So I figured, well, if this fellow uses Edwin Fitzgerald to help translate the New Testament into plain English, then it's good enough for me. So that was my purpose for buying it. So I've been reading it, and it's really quite well done. And of course, it's out of print. You can never find it again, so I'm grateful that I found it. And it was rather expensive, but it didn't matter. In this passage here today with Jesus and with Krishna, I love the fact that Yoganandaji, several hundred years before John the Baptist was incarnated and was born, he was, as Yogananda said, Elijah. Elijah was a great mountain prophet in Israel back in the day. And Elijah was of the earth. He was a sheep herder. He was a basket weaver. He wore sheepskins. And he was in tune with God. And so every once in a while, God would say, Elijah, I want you to go into town, and I want you to remind the king of the covenant that I made with his people, with your people. So Elijah would get himself up out of his cave, off the rocks, pick up his danda, his wooden staff, and march off to the kingdom. And I love how it's written. I was sharing a book the other day with a friend of mine, and it's written very well in this book. Elijah would just come right straight down the hill, the mountain, get on the road, march right on into town. And of course, when you think about town back in 700 BC, it's probably not so different than downtown Dallas, because a little different in look, but still people were people. And the rich were the rich, and the poor were the poor, and the middle class maybe didn't exist. But when he was walking into town to go talk to the king, he went straight the way. And people would stop and look at this long-haired, long-bearded sheepskin guy from the mountains with a purpose, walking. And he went right into the castle, well, right into the kingdom, right in through the gates, and nobody would stop him. And he would go up to the king, and he would make sure that he understood that you made a promise, a covenant with God. So stop worshiping idols, or else. And then he would turn around and march straight back to the mountain and wait for the next interphone call from God to go back to the king again to remind him, as some people like to refer to the ancient Israelis, they were stiff-necked people. And so it took a lot for them to understand that this was a covenant made with Moses, and it still held true, even though a lot of time had passed. So Elijah did his job. But at one time, when he was walking through town, there was a young man of the city, and well-to-do, and a physician and doctor, who was just taken by Elijah and followed him, and started to kind of be with him, and started to kind of become the disciple. And this is Alicia. And Alicia, in some way or another, just had this deep connection with Elijah. Totally different. Well-to-do Alicia, known in town, well-liked in town. The mountain man, Elijah, completely of the mountain. But there was a deep connection between both of them. Time passes, Alicia becomes his disciple. Elijah leaves his body. Alicia doesn't go to the mountain, he lives in town. He's so well respected that he becomes and develops almost the miracle worker. He starts to perform miracles. And the king completely, or the kings, whoever they were, there were several of them during Alicia's life, really, really wanted him to be with them all the time, of the people. And Alicia did all this service for people, completely different than Elijah. Well, lives come and go. Several hundred years later, John is born, the Baptist. Cousin Mary, cousin Elizabeth, Mary, Jesus is born. And Yogananda made it very clear that this was a continuing incarnation between these two. And here it was again. John the Baptist of the desert, wearing the sheepskin or whatever he wore, out there baptizing people, completely railing against the priest of the day and the dogmatic approach that it's all about the law. And it doesn't matter if we're corrupt or not, it's all about the law. And John says, no, it isn't. Make way, because someone is coming who is going to change things, change the direction. And so it's his cousin. It's his cousin from Nazareth. It's Jesus. Now, Jesus could not start his mission until he fulfilled being blessed by his guru from the past life, Elijah. And John knew that here comes Jesus in his light. He is, like he said, I am not worth the shoes that you wear. Why are you coming to me to be baptized? And then Jesus says, it's to fulfill all righteousness. He needed his guru's blessing from a previous life to continue, to start his mission. And then after John baptized him and Jesus turned and left, John told his two disciples, I think it was Andrew and one of the other ones, you have to follow him now. His light increases, his mind diminishes. And then soon after, of course, the story of John being imprisoned and then beheaded. But they needed to have that connection. Now it is interesting though, this is why I love the Gita and the Bible connected, because Krishna incarnated at a particular time. He needed to incarnate because the world was going into vices and degrading. So whenever that happens, truth declines. I incarnate to bring back truth and dharma and righteousness. Whether it's Krishna or whether it's Jesus or whether any of the great prophets of the past, the saints. So Krishna incarnated. But in a previous lifetime, Yogananda Ji wrote that Krishna was Narayana. And his disciple, his teacher, his guru was Nara. This goes back, way back in time. So I don't know who Nara was, but it always made me think about maybe it was Arjuna. Maybe because Arjuna and Krishna were guru-disciple. So who knows? But that thread of connecting with the guru continues and continues. And it doesn't have to be world-shaking events. It can just be living your life with connection to a teacher, a guru. So Krishna incarnates, but Krishna was well known. He knew the Pandava brothers of the time, but he hadn't met them yet. He knew all five of them. He heard their exploits. He knew they were Kshatriyas. He knew they were fighters for Dharma. They preserved Dharma. And when they met, there was a deep reverence between them. And the Pandava brothers knew who Krishna was, deep down in their hearts. He was their friend, but he also knew that Krishna had that quality, the Vishnu quality of perseverance, and holding up Dharma, truth, and right action. And this is what the Pandavas, that's what they lived for. That's what they were. They were right action, Dharma. But Krishna and Arjuna locked in. And this is why they needed to meet, because Krishna needed to have that discourse with Arjuna before the battle of Kurukshetra, when they're standing between the two armies. And the Kauravas, it's allegorical. The Kauravas are our ego tendencies the habits that want to draw us down back into ourselves. Nothing else exists except I, my, me, mind. This is what it's about. But Arjuna sees him as all his family and friends, his cousins. How can I possibly kill my family and cousins? So Krishna knew he had to be the charioteer for Arjuna. He knew that he had to steer the 5 horses representing the 5 senses. Incarnation of Vishnu, controlling the chariot, the 5 senses. Arjuna's battle flag, the monkey, symbolizing I have control over my mind. It does not bother me. And Arjuna pulls this big mighty bow back and twangs it. In other words, I'm ready to fight. I've had my discourse. Arjuna, Krishna come to terms in the sense of I'm going to fight. Arjuna didn't have to blow the conch. He pulled that bow back and he twanged it. And out of that twang came the Om vibration. Krishna has control of the senses, the divine, no problem. I have control over the monkey mind, and I have the Om vibration united together. And there's no way we're going to lose this battle over the senses. And so that's exactly what happens. Krishna, Arjuna, they lead, and off they go, and the battle begins. Now, in our everyday life, this is the highway to freedom. It's 3 feet long. But it's also Kurukshetra. It's also the battlefield. We're lined up with the pulls. No, don't you remember me? I'm the familiar warmth, the one who doesn't want you to go too far out, too far into yourself. You don't have to meditate, you don't have to do that stuff, you don't have to be kind. That's the Kauravas. The Pandavas say, wait a minute. The 5 brothers, well, no, and Arjuna and Krishna, yeah, I can help be your charioteer. I can help you with the senses. You can do the work to control the monkey mind. And together, you go into the Om vibration. So Jesus and John, Krishna and Arjuna, these lives continue and they continue and continue. Now, did they have to reincarnate after that? Well, if Yogananda Ji said that he was Arjuna and that Babaji was Krishna and that Rajarsi, Janakananda, a disciple of Yogananda, was one of the Pandava brothers, Sahadev, and that the mother of Sahadev and Nakula was Madri back in the day, Krishna's time. Madri incarnated as a disciple of Yogananda, Durga Mata. So these continuations, they continue and they continue and they continue. Now what does that mean for all of us? Well, we've incarnated again on planet Earth, and some of us have gurus, some of us don't. As I said earlier in fire ceremony, you don't have to have a guru. Swamiji said that. He said it in a public satsang years ago. But he says if you want to overcome, if you want to get going and to really dive into the search for God, then you do need a guru. But in the meantime, we have many, many teachers who come to us. It could be a child, it could be a young adult, it could be a sibling, it could be many, many people if we're willing to listen. I incarnated in a family of 5, wonderful family. But my grandmother and brother, they were my teachers on the path. They got me going. And I listened to them. And I had a deep connection with them. They were my first teachers. And they were teaching about life. They were teaching about what's ahead, what to look for. Don't get trapped in the stuff. My brother used to say to me, even before I knew anything about leaving my hometown, he says, always remember that your place is not here. It's not here in Western New York. You have a place to be, and I don't know that place for you, but you'll find it. So in the 70s, we made our first trip to Austin. I thought it was Austin. I thought it would be there in the 70s, but then my brother died, and then I backed up, and I thought maybe I need to go to Austin. But I said, where do you want me to go? And I didn't know who I was asking. I had Yogananda's book. He was my friend. So I looked at his picture. Where do you want me to go? I didn't say my guru, where do you want me to go? He was my friend. And I said, where do you want me to go? I trust your picture. I like what you're writing in this wonderful book. Where do you want me to go? And it was in Texas then. And it turned out that just a few weeks later, there's another book in my hand, a long-haired fellow named Swami Kriyananda. And I kind of got the message that perhaps I should jump on the Greyhound and go west, further west, to California. And I did. Now, all of us are connected in divine light and spirit. And whether you use the word guru or not, tune into your higher consciousness. Trust your intuition of your heart. Let that be your guide. Now, if you have a guru, and you're a disciple of a guru, then you roll up your sleeves and you get at it with the guru. You don't want to mess around. And I roll up my sleeves with Yogananda. He's been my guru. And I roll my sleeves up and I question and I battle, but I don't do it personally. I do it impersonally. When Kriyananda used to chant, Door of my heart, he made a comment afterwards, when you chant Door of my heart, it's a very simple chant. One of the lines, it was translated, Yogananda translated it from Bengali to English. So it's a Bengali chant, very devotional, Divine Mother chant. Yogananda, there's a line in there that Yogananda would not translate, and it was, I come to you as a beggar. And Yogananda would have nothing to do with that. He said, we are not beggars in front of God. So he did not translate that. But he made it very clear, when Swami would chant it, that what you're doing, it's a very sweet chant, but your energy in that chant needs to be, Divine Mother, you better come to me. Not with your fist up, but when you chant Door of my heart, it's beautiful, but your energy is like, you have to come to me. You better come to me. When I talk to Guru sometime and I roll my sleeves up and I just say, Yogananda ji, I need your help and I need it now. And that is what the divine likes. Not, let's fight, but I'm connected, we're connected, and I need some help and I need it now. And every single time I say that and pull back and listen, it may not happen immediately, but if you continue to listen for the answer, whether it's in a dream or coming from some friend or anybody, or a child from the mouth of babes, then there's my answer. It doesn't always come when Yogananda comes and sits in front of me and says, now Raghu, I want you to do this. Never happened. I doubt it will happen. When Yogananda was in his body, it never happened. He let people work it out themselves by attunement. By attunement. Tune in. So it's important to listen. It's important to hear what people say to you. Anybody, family, siblings, co-workers, children, listen. If they come in front of you, they're coming in front of you for a reason. Whether it's about just basic practical stuff, always listen. Whether it's something that you have to work with somebody, always listen. We were sharing that yesterday in class. It's important just to listen to people, what they have to say, and get past the words and feel what they're really trying to say. That's how the divine works through everybody, because the divine, everybody is connected with the divine, whether they know it or not. And if you're searching in yourself to go deeper, deeper, deeper into your meditations, whether it's a brief or long meditation, always try to go deep in meditation. Then when you leave your meditation spot and you're out and about in the day, you just never know. You just never know when there's a knock on the door that Divine Mother isn't standing right there. That's why Yogananda ji was really stressing that it's not just in your meditation room that you're meditating. You get up and you leave and go about your day, it's always with you. Your meditation is always happening. You can always remind yourself that a few minutes can go a long way during the cold light of day when you're out there working and doing your stuff. It's just so hard to remember because we get caught up in our stuff. You have to raise your monkey flag and say, I have control over my mind. It's not going to dictate how I should think or feel. And you let Krishna be your charioteer, controlling the five senses. There is no problem with that. And you twang the inner bow of your chakras, and you twang that so loud that the Om vibration permeates out into the world. And when that happens, the divine response. And divine response in people coming towards you, sharing stuff with you. That's the way it works a lot of times. It can be in a dream. It can be in meditation. But don't ever think it's just those two things. It's everything. Because everything we do is considered, if you consider it, everything we do is spiritual. We are spiritual people. We are human. We are emotional. We are also spiritual. And that spiritual side rises in us. And when it raises in us and we feel it emanating from us, it's also registered out in the ethers, and people are going to register with that. And they're going to want to help you in order to do that. And sometimes the help doesn't come in kind words. It can come in real interesting words from people at times. But that's what's meant to be. That is in the moment. And that's why it's so important that you have to be in the now. You have to, as Ram Dass said in the 60s, be here now. What did Eckhart Tolle say? Presence of now. Now is a very, very important word. 3 letters. And it's good to be in the now. You came here this morning, 8:30, 9 o'clock, it's over. It's gone. I said this yesterday, it's over and it's done. It's 10:50 in the morning on Sunday, and we're all here right now. It's not 10, it's not 11, it's not 11:30, it's right now. And that's how you should live. As much as we can, as much as we can practice that. When you're in the now, then everything begins to cooperate with you. Everything. The outer and the inner. And that's the key. So in meditation, visualize. If you need to visualize Krishna driving the chariot, go for it. Great visualization. Visualization. Wonderful. Visualize Arjuna. Read about them. Try to understand. Go deep into the lives of Jesus. Go deep in the lives of Jesus and John. What were the essence of it all? East and West merging together. That's what it's about. That's why these passages are so, I love them. I love reading them. So do you need a guru? Swamiji said no. Do you want to find God? Yes, you need a guru then. So that's important. It may not be this lifetime. But, Swamiji said, hey, I'm giving you the name Raghu, and that means racer. So you better race back to Divine Mother. So, all right, I'm going to race back to Divine Mother in this lifetime. And if I don't make it, then all right, at least I'm going to get a great jump start for my next life. If you have a technique of Hong Sa or Kriya, any of the techniques that Yogananda Ji taught, you're already ready for your next lifetime if you want to come back. It takes a lot of work, but if you do incarnate and you have a guru and a teacher in this life, they're not going to just say it's over with. No, they're going to be there in your next life. Elijah and Alicia met again. Nara and Narayan met again. It always will work out, and we will meet again, all of us. You are my teachers. If I have something to share with all of you, it's because we help each other. This is what it's about. We share with each other. You learn from everybody. I've seen Kriyananda over the years talk to everybody, and he always listened. He didn't put himself off into a room and close the door. He was always present. He always received people. Remember a little girl coming up to him? I don't know, he was probably 10 years before he left his body. He was in his probably mid-70s. She walked up to him, looked up at him. How old are you? And he looked down at her and he said, well, let me put it this way. When you were an old woman, I was a young boy. Very interesting. That's how it works. That is how it works. We loop back and we loop back and we loop back and we loop back. And here we are again, friends. Who knows if we weren't with Krishna and Arjuna back in the day. A friend of mine used to say, I was back there with our Krishna. I was one of his cows. I thought, well, okay. It's probably okay, but you probably weren't a cow back then. You might have been. Interesting stories. I hear a lot of interesting stories. But right now, being here is the most important life. It's not about any other previous life. It's right now. So let's all of us support, listen, share with each other, and be there for each other. We'll live in the now. And in doing so, then we'll start to feel deeply, much deeper, ever deeper, ever deeper, our connection with each other in support of our journeys, and then in support of holding up and spreading out the divine light that this world is in so much need of. There are many, many, many great things on this planet. There are many, many crazy things on this planet. It's a mixture of everything. Yogananda say it's the great education, it's the great college, the great zoo, the great hospital, wherever he said, this is where we learn. This is where we learn, and this is where we grow. Really, really, really fast. And when that happens, it really proves that even wanting to come together like this and talk about God and share and chant and meditate means we just have a little bit to go before we reach that final liberation. And when we go about this next week and today, live in the moment. Remind yourself. No matter what you do, no matter what job you have, no matter the people you're around, you're right there in the moment, and you're there to be that channel. And let people feel that, and let people come to you. Not your good, we are God's child. Praise doesn't make me any make me any better, and blame doesn't make me any worse. We are in the now, and we are even-minded. And in that spirit, let's live our lives right from today. So as we leave today, let's live in that light and share that light. And remind ourselves that the divine light, as Yogananda would say, God is the Guru, and that's where we're heading, towards freedom in the divine.